Okay, so we are ready for factoring by grouping. And we just did common factors, and and grouping is really just doing common factors. It's just a little bit more difficult. So remember what I told you when we did the last one. We always said the first step should always look for a common factor, just to simplify our problem. Okay, look for a common factor. So I'm going to real quickly look at the numbers 42, 105, 6, and 15 and see if there's anything that will go into all four of those. Okay, now the easiest would be to start with the 6 and think, well, does 6 go into all of them? So no, 6 won't go into 15, so 6 doesn't work. And so then let's look at the factors of 6, which are 2 and 3. Well, obviously we can rule out 2 because 2 won't go into 15 either. 2 won't go into 105. So the question would be, will 3 go into all of those? And so I believe 3 will. So we're going to take 3 out. Okay, so I'm going to take 42 and divide it by 3. That gives me 14. I'm going to take 105 and divide it by 3. And that's 35. I'm going to take 6 and divide by 3, and then I'm going to take 15 and divide by 3. So this is actually the problem that I am going to be working with now. Okay, so the first thing, if you're factoring by grouping, and I will tell you that most of the textbooks at your level here, they already have them in the correct order. You don't have to do any rearranging. It is possible if you get into upper math classes that you will have to rearrange these, that they won't factor in the form that they're in. But like I said, for us, pretty much it's going to happen. And so what we do is we group, and for me, I'm just going to highlight because I think this works really well. I'm going to highlight and highlight. So that's my 2 groupings. Okay, now I do need to keep this 3 out in the front. It's not going to disappear. So I am going to look for a number. So I'm looking in my yellow right now. So what is a number that will go into 14 and 35? Okay, and hopefully you can see that it's 7. Then the next is, what is my variable? I have an n cubed and an n squared. So it's the lowest, so it's n squared. Okay, so now I'm going to look at what's left over. So if I take 7n squared out of 14n cubed, it leaves me with a 2 and an n. And if you, again, don't know what I'm doing, I'm now taking and I'm dividing. I would not do this within my problem. I would do it somewhere over to the side, but this is what I'm doing right now. Okay, and so 35 divided by 7 is 5, and then your n squared and your n squared cancel. Okay, so for right now, what I now have is that that yellow piece and this yellow piece is the exact same. Okay, if I multiplied that back out, I would get what was up above. Okay, so my next one is look at 2 and 5, and what number does 2 and 5 have in common? And in that case, it is just 1. Now, when we're doing factor by grouping, we do want to put that 1 there. I just think it makes it easier. So 1 is the most common thing they have. There's no numbers in common because the 5 doesn't have an n. So if I just divide both of those by 1, I still get what I started with. Okay? So what I'm looking at now is that there's the orange. See, it looks the same. Okay? Now, here's the thing about grouping, is that once you've done this original factoring, now I'm looking at both of these, okay, both of these, and I want to know what they have in common. And if you're doing factoring by grouping correctly, they should have something in common, okay? So I'm going to keep the 3. It's just hanging around out in front. I would hate to say, some kids want to just leave it off at the beginning and pick it back up at the end, but I'm afraid you'll forget to keep it. So I just keep bringing it down. It's just hanging around out in front. It's just an observer. Think of it that way. So both of these have 2n minus 5 in common, okay? So now what I'm doing is I'm taking this 7n squared times 2n minus 5, and I'm dividing it by 2n minus 5, okay? So what I have left is 7n squared, okay? And then on the other side, if I take the 2n out, so again, it's just like dividing this here, then all I have left, and this is why I think putting that 1 there helps, because all I have left is 1. A lot of times kids will leave that off. They'll just say 7n squared. No, that's not it. It's still got to have the 1 in there, okay? Always when you're done, double check and just make sure nothing else factors, especially if this one here still has a square, okay? It's possible it could still break down some more. In this case, it doesn't, so we're done with our problem. So that is your answer. Okay, that's factor by grouping. Okay, let's try another one. 36, 84, 48, and 112. Well, for sure we know they're all divisible by 2. That's a given. 36 is divisible by 6. 84 is divisible by 6. 48 is divisible by 6. And let's see, is 112 divisible by 6? And it is not. So 6 won't go in there. So we know for sure 2 will go in. Okay. What else goes into 4? Will 4 go into everything? 4 will go into 112. So 112 divided by 4 is 28. Okay, so right now we've got 4. 4 will go into all of them. We tried 2, 4, 6 won't work. 8. No, 8 won't go into 84. We're running out of things. 8 won't go into 36 either. How about 9? No. Okay, so that looks like that is the biggest thing. Now we're going to look at our variables because these all contain them. So in this case, I do have an x4 is my lowest, and remember we always bring it out. Okay, now again, I don't necessarily do this in my problem. What I might do, let me just do that. I'm going to drop this down, 4x4. You could come up here, and remember we did that dividing by monomials in the earlier video when we were doing division. So if you want to, you could come in here. If not, do it over to the side. But I wouldn't do it within where I'm doing my factoring. So 36 divided by 4 is 9. Remember the subtraction rule, so I have 3. 84 divided by 4 would be 21, and only 2 x's left. And 4 into that would be 12 and 1. And what did I say? 28. And the 4's cancel. Okay, there's my problem. So now I'm going to go to my grouping. Okay, so here is my first grouping, and here is my second grouping. Okay, so the 4x4 hangs out, and now I'm going to see if there's something that goes into 9 and 21. And that's 3. And guys, if you don't know your multiplication tables, this is where this really becomes hard, because you've got to be able to kind of multiply and divide in your head quickly. We have an x2 and an x3, so remember we take out the smallest. So once I take that out, again, I wouldn't do it necessarily within my problem, but I would probably come over, or, you could come under here, 3x squared, you could do that. Just so you see, but I would prefer to do it to the side. So that is going to give me 3x plus 7. Okay, now I'm going to the yellow. And so again, let me just back up, just kind of color code this for you. And I'm not saying you have to color code anything, but I just want you to see where I'm getting everything. Okay, and 12 and 28, 4. Now, again, it's a negative 4, so that would be 3x and plus 7. So negative 28 divided by negative 4. Again, when I am done, so that there is my yellow, okay? And just remember, guys, when I'm done here, if I go back and I distribute, okay, there's 9x cubed, 21x squared. I better get the previous step. Okay, now I'm going to look to see what do these two have in common. And so we're going to carry that on out in front. We're going to see that they both have a 3x plus 7. So take out your common factor. And then sometimes I'll just kind of slash through it, because once I take it out, that's a 2. That's what I have left. Okay? And then again, you would check the 3x squared to see if it would factor. It won't factor any further, so that is it. Final answer. Okay, number 7. 18, 15, 30, and 25. Anything in common in those? 25 is just 5 and 5. 5 won't go into 18, so it looks like we don't have any common factors we can take out. So I'm now going to go to grouping and grouping. So of 18x cubed minus 5x squared, what do they have in common? So what does 18 and 15 have in common? And is a 3. Then x squared and x cubed, that would be an x squared. Let's take out 3x squared. And so that would be 18 divided by 3 is 6. And x cubed divided by x squared would be x. 15 divided by 3 is 5. And your x squareds cancel. Okay, so again, that is my yellow step. Then 30 and 25, negative 25, I'm going to take out 5. And 5 into 30 is 6. And then the x, and 5 into negative 25 would be 5. And again, those had, when you start looking at this, these two things should be the same. If they're not, you've messed up. Or it won't factor. That's your other option. So now we're going to, again, look at my two pieces. What do they have in common? They have in common a 6x minus 5. If I take that piece out, I'm left with 3x squared plus 5. This one just didn't have a common factor out in front, so you're done. Okay, number 8. 16, 2, 16, and 2. So all of those will divide by 2. So now we do have a common factor. The 2 doesn't have a v down here, does not have a v. So there's no letters that'll go out. Let's go ahead and reduce. So 16 divided by 2 would be 8. 2 divided by 2 is 1. 16 divided by 2 again is 8. And 2 divided by 2 is 1. Okay, so now we're going to group the first 2. We're going to group the second 2. Okay, and then I'm going to, what do they have in common? So they both have a v squared. If I take the v squared out of the 8v cubed, I'm going to get an 8v. If I take a v squared divided by a v squared, I'm going to get 1, and it's negative. And again, in the yellow, what does 8v and 1 have in common that I could take out? And that is just a 1. That's the only thing. Again, I'm just going to do that mainly just as kind of a placeholder. Okay, the 2's out in front. Now again, what do these two have in common? 8v minus 1. If I mark that out, what's left? V squared plus 1. Okay, final answer. Okay, so that is your factor by grouping.